Welcome to the Heart for God podcast. With many years of experience pastoring and helping to start churches, Dr. Jim Townsley has some practical and biblical advice that can be a great help to you and your ministry. On this podcast, Dr. Townsley and other guests with special expertise cover a variety of topics. His goal is to help you lead your church to be a healthy, strong, and balanced ministry, and for your family to be happy, healthy, and living for the Lord.
Thanks for joining me today to a Heart for God podcast. It's seemed like been a long winter, and it's been very cold where we are in New England, and it still have a lot of snow on the ground. But, you know, the work goes on. No matter what the weather or whether it's too hot or too cold, you want to keep going forward in the ministry, and things like that can be obstacles, but certainly you just keep going doing what God wants you to do. So I hope that you're doing well. And today I think this topic, which I'm going to discuss, is something that people need to reflect upon. I think there's a lot of questions about educating your children. There are really three main options to educating your children, and they would be homeschool, public, or perhaps a private school, much the same as a public school, or a Christian school. I think parents need to realize it is our responsibility to train our children. You can't count on any outside group to do all of that for you. It really is important to instill in them virtue to help them get an education. But it's pretty hard to do that all on your own. If you look at most constitutions of a church, you'll find a covenant of faith. Before the statement of faith, there'll be a covenant. And among other things listed in that covenant, people covenant together to do these things. One of the things that's usually in that statement is we further covenant to maintain family and secret devotions, to religiously educate our children, to seek the salvation of our kindred and our acquaintances. So it should be an important thing. It should be something that you don't just leave entirely for others, but to assure that your children get the best education that will not deter them from their Christian walk. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the different options you have. When you're on a mission field, very often it's Christian school is not an option. Sometimes it is, but many times it's not. So you have the option of public school or homeschool, pretty much. And there are pros and cons to each one of them. One of the difficulties of being on a mission field, particularly if it's a different language, your children have to learn that language. And if they're isolated, if you homeschool them and they never learn the language, they never have any friends, that socially they don't know how to react to people. They're isolated. They don't fit in. They're looked at as foreigners. Then, that they look at themselves as different. If they go to the public school, there's the challenge of some of the humanistic influence of teaching. There's the influence of immorality in the school. So you have issues that you think, I don't know if I can tolerate that. So it's kind of a tough decision if your children are homeschooled. They're not exposed to humanism. They're not exposed to some of the immorality of other students, but they're also isolated. And the strange thing is, they come back to the United States, say after they graduate high school, they don't really fit in there either because they've been in another country. They're not fully Americanized, and so there's a lot of challenges. So there's no cookie cutter plan as to what to do, and certainly you want to pray much about how you do this. Sometimes there's a hybrid type of thing you could do where maybe they go to the public school in the lower grades, but not in high school. Maybe they could go 2 or 3 days a week. Maybe they could be part of a sports program where you feel you have enough control, and with the age, it's not going to be a problem. Where they learn the language, they learn the culture, but yet they have to learn certain English things. And so, you're asking them to do 2 courses of study. They're doing one language and they're studying another language. So if a child doesn't like to go to school, certainly he won't like to go to school twice as much. So there are some unique challenges, but prayerfully consider how that will work for you. Prayerfully consider long-term how this will affect your children. And I do think it is good if your children can develop friends on a mission field and just in some limited contact with them and guarded situations, and perhaps in elementary school, that's not going to affect them as much, so that they can make friends. If they can't communicate with the language, then they can't possibly make friends. So I think you just have to pray about it, monitor it carefully. It is a challenge, though. If you're in the United States, and you want to properly teach your children, the public school has a lot of challenges to it. Probably certain parts of the country, it's worse than others. Certain schools are worse than others. But one of the things that happens if your children go to public school, they have access of people whom they can reach with the gospel. If they are homeschooled, they don't have that outreach. Even in a Christian school, they don't have that same outreach where they can bring their friends to church. If you go to Sunday school and the teacher says, "Oh, let's see who's going to bring a visitor this week." Well, if you're homeschooled, you don't have access to that. If you're in a public school, there are a lot of people you can work on trying to get to come. Of course, the downfall of it is instead of reaching those students, they reach you or reach your children, and they get a secular mind. They face certain immoral issues and cursing and swearing and attitude. So there is that threat. So I'm not saying that your children can't go to public school and be able to succeed, but I think there's some children that can't. So that could be a real challenge. But if they're homeschooled, there's problems with that too. That's not perfect. Sometimes children are homeschooled and they get a superior attitude, like we're better than everybody. And you have to guard against that. Sometimes homeschooling means no schooling. Parents think, well, I'll keep them out of the public school, but if you're going to homeschool them, your children should get up in the morning, get dressed like they're going to school. They should sit at their computer or get their books out, have a schedule. You're really a full-time teacher just for your children, or maybe husband and wife share some of that responsibility, but it should be a class schedule similar to what a traditional classroom would be like. They can't do it all on their own. I know there's video, there's different things but there has to be some guidance and intervention and teaching. And every parent's not all that capable of doing that kind of teaching, especially when you get into high school, some of the upper classes. And once again, sometimes there are hybrid things you can do. Get tutoring with some upper level classes if you don't feel you're capable. Or maybe there's a way to go to the public school for a single class. Or in some cases, maybe they can be involved in sports if that is something that works. Not always in all cases, but sometimes that does. Sometimes homeschool children are very backward and socially inept. They're so isolated, they only know their family and their children. So just the fact that I think sometimes people have the idea, well, it's my job to train my children, and so we're going to homeschool them, but they need some kind of experience with other children. They need to learn how to get along. They need to learn how to discern right and wrong. And sometimes children being so isolated, they've not learned any of those skills. And though I don't understand this, I know there are people that they isolate their children. They don't even attend youth activities at their church. And they graduate from high school, homeschool, and they send them to a state university. Now, for the life of me, I cannot understand what people are thinking, but they are ill-prepared to go out and meet the ideas and the philosophy, the morality that comes along with the state university. So, there is no perfect thing. It takes work no matter what you do. The Christian school is not perfect either. Our children all went to the Christian school. I felt it was the best option for us. And we have a Christian school. And I ran a school. I even was a principal for a period of time. Some people had the idea, evidently, that, wow, if we have a Christian school, we're going to train the next group of leaders. They're going to be preachers and missionaries. I never felt that was going to be the role of the Christian school. That basically the Christian school isolates your children from some of the contamination of the world. It also allows them to have a different perspective toward many social issues. They can look at humanism differently. Some of the things that are taught practically as fact that are not, they're just theories, like evolution is an example, and some of the DEI issues that, there's a lot of things that you can isolate them from, but you can also teach them what you believe the biblical perspective is. So in the Christian school gives you an opportunity for your children to get along with others that are don't think the same way. And they're not all spiritual. They're still children growing up. And sometimes there are kids in the Christian schools that, have a bad attitude. And, but I think it's, if you have a Christian school and it's run properly, I think that is a very good option that, in my mind, I would never consider doing the homeschooling if I had that option. But homeschooling may be the only option you have. So I think it is important to beware, though, of some of the pros and cons of whichever choice you make, whether it be homeschooling, public school, or a Christian school. There is give and take with each one of them. There are some advantages and some disadvantages. So again, it is a personal thing. You have to pray about it, but don't just listen to one person. Pray about it and think in those terms. Do you want your child to be isolated, not learn how to get along with other people? Sometimes that happens in homeschooling. Do I want them to feel like they're superior? Sometimes children do advanced work because they're really smart. Their parents are smart, and they feel like, well, I'm better than everybody else. If you have your children homeschooled, by all means, make sure they get at least involvement in your local church and teen activities and youth activities. I think there is a sort of a principle that in a guarded way, allow your children to make some mistakes and to be, I call it responsible independence. I would rather they make a mistake at third grade of having the wrong friends than getting out of school, going to a state university, and being drawn into some of the terrible things that they might be faced with there. And so you can monitor some of those issues, their music, their clothing, their dress, their attitude. So they have the opportunity they can do right or wrong. And when they do wrong, you can correct them. So there is nothing perfect, but you still have to monitor what your children are doing, how they behave, the right attitude, the church, the local church, and their attitude toward that, their Christian service. All those things are really, really important. And teaching them a skill, teaching them fine arts, play an instrument, sing, work in a bus ministry. Those are as essential as English and math and science. They're all important, but those things are teaching them the right spirit, the right attitude. So it's no easy thing to rear children the day in which we live. There's a lot of exposure to a lot of things that are detrimental to the home and family. And your goal is to teach your children to stand on their own, develop convictions. And that sometimes means they have to face the possibility they'll make some wrong decisions as they're growing up. But that's teaching opportunity to help them correct those mistakes, learn how to stand on their own, learn how to be discerning of what's right and wrong. And we can prepare our young people to make a difference in this world, in this society around us. And the Lord knows we need more young people that are leaders, that are serious about serving God, that will replace missionaries, pastors, Christian school teachers, and have a heart for ministry. Well, maybe this is more rambling than anything, but these are things that I've thought about, thought through, prayed about. Hopefully there's something that was said that can be of value to you and help you if you have children at home or if you have grandchildren, that somehow you can influence them the right way and beware of some of the pitfalls, some of the possible things that could hinder their spiritual growth. Well, God bless you. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider sharing it with a friend. You can also follow at Dr. Townsley on Twitter or on Facebook at Jim Townsley.